Is it possible for the person who promised to love and protect you to become the very person who strips away every ounce of your dignity in front of a room full of strangers? For 6 years, I lived as a shadow in my own home, a man who built grand structures by day but was dismantled bit by bit every single night. I convinced myself that keeping the peace was a noble sacrifice, but in reality, I was just letting my wife, Ilara, bury my soul under a mountain of public humiliation. Everything changed on the night of my daughter Maya's ballet recital, a night that began with a forgotten pair of shoes and ended with the realization that my life was a cage. If you've ever felt like you're shrinking just to make someone else feel big, this story is for you. Useless. Completely useless. The words didn't just fall into the room, they echoed through the auditorium like a gunshot, sharp and cold. 300 parents, dressed in their Sunday best, with flowers for their daughters clutched in their laps, turned in a single synchronized motion. Some looked away instantly, that awkward sideways glance people give when they witness something they shouldn't. Most, however, didn't bother pretending. They stared. My name was Arthur. I was 32 years old that night, standing in the back row of the Community Arts Center. I was holding Maya's costume bag, a flurry of pink sequins and tulle, while my wife, Ilara, tore me apart in front of every parent, teacher, and child in the building. The catalyst was a pair of ballet shoes. Maya was 5, and in the chaos of getting her ready, the satin slippers had been left in the car, exactly 40 feet away in the parking lot. I'd already sent Ilara a text message letting her know I was running out to grab them, but she didn't want the shoes. She wanted an audience. She always needed an audience. Useless. Completely useless. She continued, her voice carrying that theatrical disappointment she'd perfected over 6 years of marriage. It wasn't a scream, it was a projection, a performance designed to cast her as the long-suffering saint and me as the incompetent burden. One job. I asked you to do one simple thing, and you couldn't even manage that. What is actually wrong with you, Arthur? I didn't respond. Over the years, I'd learned that responding was like throwing gasoline on a wildfire. It only gave her more material. So I stood there, absorbing the heat of her words, feeling the prickle of sweat on the back of my neck, while strangers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. By trade, I am a Finnish carpenter. I spend 12-hour days in a world of sawdust and precision. I build custom cabinets for high-end homes, the kind of work where a 1/16 of an inch is the difference between perfection and failure. My hands are calloused, scarred by saws and chisels. My back aches most nights from lifting heavy slabs of oak and maple. On the job site, I am respected. Contractors trust me to work without supervision because they know my word is as solid as the structures I build. But at home, I was apparently incapable of remembering a pair of pink satin shoes. Maya appeared at the edge of the stage curtain. Her small, delicate face was crumpled with a confusion that no 5-year-old should have to carry. She didn't understand why Mommy was yelling at Daddy in a room full of people. She just knew it felt wrong. It felt heavy. I met her eyes across the distance and tried to force a smile. I tried to tell her with my expression that everything was fine, that this was just normal. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. I'd known it for a long time. I walked out to the parking lot, the night air hitting my face like a cold towel. I retrieved the shoes and brought them backstage without saying a word. Ilara was already there, adjusting Maya's tutu and whispering instructions as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just publicly dismantled me in front of 300 strangers. As I handed them the shoes, she didn't look at me. She didn't thank me. She just plucked them from my hand and waved me away like I was the hired help who had finally finished a menial task.
I found my seat again and watched my daughter dance. She was beautiful, moving with that clumsy, earnest grace that only 5-year-olds possess. Her tongue was poking out of the corner of her mouth in deep concentration as she tried to remember her steps. But while the other parents were smiling and recording on their phones, I was hollow. When the recital ended, I noticed the ballet teacher standing near the side exit. Her name was Elena. She had been teaching Maya for nearly a year, but we'd barely spoken more than a few pleasantries. She was watching me. Not with pity exactly. It was something sharper, something more observant. It made me uncomfortable, like she had seen a secret I wasn't ready to admit to myself. Ilara and I met at a friend's barbecue when I was 25. She was the bright light of the party, confident, quick with a joke, charismatic. I was the quiet, steady guy who showed up early and stayed late to help clean up the grill. She told me she liked that about me. She said I was reliable. Looking back, I realized that reliable was just her word for controllable. The first few years were a blur of building a life. We got married, bought a house in a quiet neighborhood, and had Maya. I worked overtime to provide. Ilara stayed home with the baby, a choice we made together because she wanted to be present for those early years. But the transition from partner to authority figure happened so gradually, I didn't see the walls closing in until I was already trapped. It started with small comments. I loaded the dishwasher wrong. I bought the wrong brand of milk. There were eye rolls when I suggested weekend plans that didn't align with her agenda. Then it got louder. She started correcting my opinions in front of friends, laughing at my mistakes as if they were entertainment for the group. Arthur tried to fix the guest bathroom sink himself, she'd say at dinner parties, shaking her head while sipping wine. I had to call a professional the next morning to fix the flood. Honestly, I don't know what he'd do without me. The room would laugh, and I'd smile along, pretending the sting wasn't there. My father had worked construction for 40 years. He taught me how to measure twice and cut once. He taught me to take pride in my work, and more importantly, he never once belittled my mother. Even when they disagreed, there was a baseline of respect that was never, ever crossed. I thought that was how marriage worked. But in my marriage, I had stopped sharing my thoughts. I stopped making suggestions. I stopped trying to be heard at all. It was easier to just nod, to disappear into the background of my own life. My sister, Sarah, noticed. She'd ask if I was okay, and I'd give her the standard lie. I'm fine, just busy with work. Some things are just too hard to say out loud. The night of the recital wasn't the worst thing Ilar had ever done, but the setting changed things. The public nature of it, Maya's frightened face, the silence of the other parents. It stripped away my ability to make excuses for her. As the lobby flooded with families after the performance, Ilara was in the center of the crowd, accepting compliments about Maya's dancing as if she personally choreographed every move. I stayed in the back, holding the costume bag, waiting for the command to leave. That's when Elena, the ballet teacher, approached me. "Mr. Arthur, do you have a moment?" she asked. I followed her to a quiet corner near the water fountains. I felt my shoulders tightened, preparing for another lecture. "I saw what happened earlier," she said softly. "It was nothing," I lied. "Just a misunderstanding." "It wasn't nothing." Her voice was gentle but firm. "And it wasn't a misunderstanding." I didn't know how to respond. No one had ever called it out directly before. Elena looked toward the lobby where Lara was laughing, then back at me. "Can I tell you something? I was married to a man like that once. Charming in the light, but very different behind closed doors. It took me 8 years to see the truth, but 9 words changed everything for me." "What were they?" I asked. She met my eyes with a piercing clarity. "Love should never make you feel this small." The words landed in my chest like a physical weight. It was a place I'd been protecting for years, a place I'd convinced myself didn't matter. "I'm not trying to tell you what to do," Elena continued. "I just recognized something tonight, something I wish someone had said to me sooner." Before I could respond, Ilara's voice cut across the lobby. "Arthur, we're leaving. Stop making people wait." I walked back to my family in a daze. That night, after Maya was tucked in and Ilara was watching TV, I sat on the back porch and stared at the dark sky. Love should never make you feel this small. I had spent 6 years shrinking. I had spent 6 years apologizing for things that weren't my fault. I had accepted treatment I never would have tolerated from a stranger. Something cracked open in me that night. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. I didn't know the how yet, but I knew I couldn't keep living as a shadow. Over the next few weeks, I began to pay attention, not to the words Ilara said, but to the patterns. I noticed how she spoke to me when we were alone versus when others were watching. I noticed how she smiled at neighbors while barely acknowledging my presence. I started a notebook hidden in my workshop behind a stack of mahogany planks, a record of my life. Dates, comments, situations. The list grew faster than I could believe. One Thursday, I made dinner. Grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, and Maya's favorite potatoes. I set the table and waited. Ilara walked in, glanced at the spread, and sighed. "You use the everyday plates. We have guests this weekend, Arthur. You never think."
Usually, I would have apologized. Instead, I said, "I made dinner. A simple thank you would be nice." Her eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" I said a thank you would be nice, that's all. She stared at me like I was a stranger. In 6 years, I had never pushed back. "What's gotten into you? You've been acting strange, distant, moody." "I'm not moody," I said quietly. "I'm just asking for basic respect." She laughed, a cold, sharp sound. "Respect? You want respect? Then earn it. Do something worth respecting." She took her plate to the living room and turned on the TV. Subject closed. But for me, the subject was finally open. I called my sister Sarah the next day. We sat in my workshop, the smell of sawdust and cedar around us. "I think my marriage is over," I said. Sarah didn't look surprised. "I've been waiting for you to say that for 3 years, Arthur." She told me things I hadn't wanted to hear, how our parents had noticed the way Ilara spoke to me, how my friends had asked if I was okay. Even Maya had once asked Sarah why Mommy yelled at Daddy so much. Everyone knew. Everyone except the version of me that was too afraid to look. I began my research. I went to the library and read books on relationships and emotional patterns. What I found was a term I'd never applied to my own life: emotional abuse. I thought abuse was physical. I thought it was visible bruises. But the books described my life perfectly. The isolation, the erosion of self-worth, the way the victim begins to believe they deserve the treatment. I ran into Elena at the grocery store a week later. She recognized me immediately. "How are you doing?" she asked. "Better," I said, seeing things clearly for the first time. She nodded. "That's the hardest part, seeing through the fog." I asked her how she knew it was time to leave her husband. She told me she asked herself one question: would I want my daughter to stay in a relationship like this? The answer for me was an instant, resounding no. I wouldn't want Maya to live like this for even a day. That night, I started looking for an apartment. I found a 2-bedroom place near Maya's school, quiet, safe, and most importantly, mine. I kept the keys hidden in my workshop. Next, I called a lawyer named Martha who specialized in custody cases involving emotional control. I told her everything: the public shaming, the constant criticism, the financial control. Martha told me to document everything: text messages, voicemails, witness statements. I spent 3 weeks gathering my evidence. I saved voicemails where Ilara screamed at me for being 5 minutes late. I saved texts where she called me worthless. I got statements from Sarah and a few coworkers who had seen her behavior at company picnics. But I also spent that time being the best father I could be to Maya. I taught her how to ride her bike. I read to her every night. I made sure she knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that she was loved. Ilara noticed the change and resented it. "You're spoiling her," she'd snap. "She's going to expect this kind of attention all the time." "I hope she does," I replied. One evening, Ilara found a receipt for the apartment deposit that I had accidentally left in a jacket pocket. Her face went from pale to a deep, furious red. What is this, Arthur? I didn't lie. The time for lying was over. I'm leaving, Ilara. I'm taking Maya and I'm leaving. She laughed, that same dismissive laugh. You? Leave me? Where would you even go? You can't survive a week without me telling you what to do. I already have a place, I said firmly, and I have a lawyer. I'm not living like this anymore. The custody hearing was 3 months later. Ilara arrived with an expensive lawyer and a confident smile, clearly expecting to win by simply being the mother. But Martha was methodical. She presented the notebook, she presented the witness statements, and then she played the voicemail. Ilara's voice, high and vicious, filled the courtroom. You are worthless, Arthur. You are nothing without me. If you ever try to take Maya, I will destroy you. I will make sure everyone knows what a pathetic excuse for a man you are. The room went silent. Ilara's face drained of color. The judge looked at her directly. Is this your voice, ma'am?
She couldn't deny it. The evidence of a 6-year pattern of emotional demolition was too clear to ignore. The ruling came 3 weeks later. Primary custody to me, with supervised visitation for Ilara pending a psychological evaluation. I was in my new apartment, painting Maya's room her favorite shade of lavender when Martha called with the news. I sat on the floor and let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 6 years. I could finally breathe. The months that followed were peaceful. Maya adjusted beautifully. She loved her new room and the fact that our home was calm. There was no more walking on eggshells, no more waiting for the next explosion. I reconnected with the friends Ilara had pushed away. I spent Sundays with my parents and Sarah. Elena and I stayed in touch. She became a close friend, someone who understood the long road of healing from emotional wounds. And I never missed a single one of Maya's performances. Vanessa, Ilara, meanwhile, had to face the consequences she'd spent years avoiding. Her social circle moved on once the truth of the custody battle became known. Her mother distanced herself. The control she had used as a weapon was gone. She called me once, 6 months later. Her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. I didn't think it would end like this, she said. Neither did I, and I hung up. Some chapters don't need a long goodbye. They just need to be closed. I still think about Elena's 9 words. Love should never make you feel this small. They were the mirror I needed to see that I was actually a giant, a man of strength, a man of craft, and a father who would do anything to protect his child. Last night, I sat on my porch while Maya chased fireflies in the yard. She was laughing, free and completely unafraid. I realized then that the most important thing I ever built wasn't a cabinet or a house. It was this life, this peace. I spent 6 years shrinking, but today I am finally standing tall. The journey isn't over and the scars are still there, but for the first time in my life, I'm the one holding the blueprint. And the structure I'm building now, it's made of respect, it's made of truth, and it's built to last a lifetime. I look at my hands now. The calluses are still there. The scars from my tools are still visible, but they don't shake anymore when the phone rings. They are steady. They are the hands of a man who reclaimed his life. If you are out there feeling like you are disappearing, please know that there is a way out. You are not useless. You are not a burden. You are a person worthy of respect and a love that makes you feel like you can conquer the world, not a love that makes you want to hide from it. I'm Arthur, and I'm a carpenter. I know how to fix things that are broken, and I'm telling you, you can fix your life too. It starts with one step, one notebook, and the courage to believe that you deserve to be seen. Don't let anyone convince you that your silence is your only strength. Your voice is your power. Maya and I are living proof that after the storm, there is a quiet, beautiful morning waiting for you.
Never settle for a love that makes you feel small. You were meant to stand tall.